Ambassador to Afghanistan in the Obama administration, Ryan Crocker, again. I want to play this clip of him again because this is prior to that middling interview that Biden did yesterday with Clinton Foundation donor Zero, where he struggled, just as his NSA did, Jake Sullivan, to make a commitment that U.S. military would remain in Afghanistan until all Americans and American allies, Afghan allies of America, are extracted. This is Ryan Crocker's assessment of the Biden response, the Biden contingency planning prior to that.
I very much feel that way. This is his first major test as commander-in-chief. It has not gone well, to say the very least. I think I was most affected by his remarks of yesterday. He was unapologetic. He was defiant. He quoted the famous adage from Harry Truman, "The buck stops here," and then proceeded to blame everybody else, most significantly, of course, the Afghan National Security Forces.
Mm-hmm. And then yesterday with Stephanopoulos, he sort of continued on that line when Stephanopoulos asked pro forma, no pushback, of course, because it's a softball interview setup. They're each reading from their scripts, or they're supposed to be. At least that's how the handlers had it planned. Could anything have gone better? No, not really. It was inevitable that it would be chaos. For more on this and a couple of other topics, please be joined again by Dave Seminara, former diplomat, author of Footsteps of Federer and Mad Travelers, A Tale of Wanderlust, Greed, and the Quest to Reach the Ends of the Earth. Dave, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me back on the show, Dan. How's your summer going?
It's good. By the way, I didn't know how much we had in common. You have an honorary doctorate in Icelandic folk dancing from Fresno State.
Yes, I do.
I majored in Icelandic folk dancing at Northwestern.
But he got a B. Oh.
It's weird how, we've been living these parallel lives. So I know your diplomatic career did not include stints in Central Asia. But as a
I've been to Central Asia, though. I've been to several of the stands, though. Not Afghanistan, but I've been to Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. I've been to several of them.
Well, give us your perspective then, as somebody who's traveled to the region and as also as a foreign service officer, on what you've seen the last 4 days.
Well, let's just say, first of all, I did stint as a consular officer, as a foreign service officer. And consular officers are in charge of evacuations. So this is something that I did not engage in any evacuations, fortunately. However, the first post that I served in Macedonia, they had actually done an American citizen evacuation a year before I'd gotten there. There was a civil war there in 2001, and I arrived in 2002. So this was all sort of fresh when I'd gotten there. There had been an evacuation of U.S. citizens in the country 6 months or so before I'd gotten there. And I've gone through the State Department's courses on evacuations of U.S. citizens. So I've actually been following this fairly closely. And the first thing that struck me was the images of that military aircraft with anywhere between 640 and 800 some odd Afghans crammed onto this plane. This is the first thing that struck me is, wait a minute, why are we engaging in the evacuation of any Afghan citizens whatsoever? And I understand some of them, if they were translators or they work with us, great. We're going to evacuate them at some point. But every U.S. citizen should be prioritized first. I mean, I during our training, I never even heard of us evacuating foreign citizens from their own country, especially before American citizens were evacuated. We still have reportedly several thousand U.S. citizens who are in Afghanistan, and some of these Afghans forced their way onto this plane. Apparently, is that what happened was that we weren't intending to take 640 or 800 of them, or how many ever crammed onto that plane, but some of them just forced their way in, basically, to the aircraft. So, the complete chaos of the evacuation is absolutely shocking and appalling and disgusting to me. And I'm in utter disbelief that it could have gone this way, because absolutely foreseeable. I mean, this is not like Switzerland, where all of a sudden some terrible natural disaster occurred and we have to, do an evacuation of U.S. citizens in Switzerland. And oh my gosh, we weren't expecting this at all, right? I mean, I don't really know what else to say, but it's just an incredible scene of chaos, and we look like the third world country here.
And respond to the cover story, because the cover story from Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff's Milley yesterday and from Biden and others in the press corps that are running interference for them. No one could have known. No one could have known. The intelligence estimates maybe a month, maybe a year, so on and so forth. But that's a mischaracterization of the intelligence estimates that continue to paint a more dire picture as we got closer to what transpired over the weekend. So that's disingenuous. But also, and then the understanding of what was more or less likely, and the contingency planning that should have been done regardless of whether what transpired this weekend did or not. But just the diplomatic speak you're hearing from politicians, including politicians in uniforms.
Right, and they're all trying to cover their asses right now. I mean, I heard a clip this morning of Linda Thomas Greenfield, who is our ambassador, U.S. ambassador to the UN, saying that we issued a very strongly worded statement warning the Taliban not to mistreat women and so on and so forth. Oh, my goodness. Well, if we are issuing strongly worded press statements, then everything's just going to be fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
This whole situation is incredible. I mean, it really, even by the low standards of the Biden administration efficiency, I really can't believe that they botched this badly. And at this point, it's really critical to figure out where do we go from here. And for me, the first, and most important thing is really figuring out how to get our U.S. citizens out of the country. I mean, I read also that we've apparently sent warden messages to U.S. citizens in Afghanistan saying it's up to them to figure out how to get to the airport. Good luck, guys, getting to the airport. If you get to the airport, maybe we're going to help you. That is not good enough. I mean, listen, most of these, many of these U.S. citizens, I would say, who are in Afghanistan are people who are like security contractors. I mean, a lot of these people are people who have previously served in our armed forces, who have, many of them, high percentage of them are people who have risked their lives, for our country. And just to say, well, good luck, you can figure out how to get to the airport. We're going to help you. That is not good enough. After we've already spent trillions of dollars in Afghanistan, and how many lives we've lost, 2,400 of our men and women and such. This is not good enough. It's time to go the extra mile to safely get our citizens out of Afghanistan. And, whatever they've botched up until this time point, they should right now be focusing on that singular goal, not worrying about, at the moment, translators or bringing in thousands of refugees or all these other things they're talking about. The singular focus right now should be trying to figure out how to safely get our citizens out of the country.
Yeah, there's absolutely no sense of urgency when you listen to any of our politicians yesterday and the Secretary of Defense. But they stand a chance. They could get kidnapped or killed. That's also a possibility. They're sitting ducks right now.
It's incredible. And I'm also shocked, too, by the way, that they were even planning to do the evacuation out of the Kabul airport. The plan should have all along been Bagram Air Force Base, and to have abandoned this place. Now, the amount of equipment that we have abandoned too, which will now be taken up by the Taliban, and could be used against us or could fall into the hands of enemies, of terrorists. And the whole thing is shocking. And if this isn't, at the moment, it's not time for investigations and such. It's time for us to pick up the pieces and to move on. But we also, at some point later on, all of this should be investigated. And the people in the U.S. government who are responsible for this fiasco have to lose their jobs. There have to be consequences for this.
I want to hear more about the training you do as a Foreign Service officer with civilian evacuations, evacuating Americans from a particular place that where that has gone haywire, as Afghanistan did, as Kabul did. And so what is that? I mean, other than the logistical decisions about, Bagram Airport versus the airport in Kabul, what are other things you see that you say, well, or things you've heard, say that is not consistent with how sort of standard operating procedure in these circumstances, including, as you were just describing, this idea that you have to make your way to the airport. Secretary of Defense Austin saying we don't have the capacity to do extraction of large numbers of people, only individual people in extreme positions.
Well, what I can tell you is, all consular officers, they take a course called ConGen, which is, I think it was like a 2-month-long course, something like that. Of course, I took this course in 2002, so we're talking about 19 years ago. But of course, a lot of these things really don't change. What I will say is that I think that a lot of these evacuations are handled on a sort of ad hoc basis, in terms of not everything is done the same way at each time. It really depends upon the circumstances. But one thing that I can tell you for a fact that is in 2001 in Macedonia, which is, comparing 2001 Macedonia to 2021 Afghanistan is, really sort of no contest in terms of the danger level. However, I will say that at that time, we did, when I say we, I mean the U.S. government. I was not at the embassy, but this happened shortly before I got there. They did evacuate U.S. citizens from the country. And what they did was they actually chartered buses to actually go to people's homes and get them. So this was a much greater level of effort on the part of the U.S. government. Now, I will say that they did charge U.S. citizens for this. However, it was, sort of a nominal fee. And it was very well organized by the embassy. And it wasn't just like, hey, we recommend you leave, good luck, adios, or whatever. It was, this was a very serious and intensive effort to actually really help people. And it wasn't just like, hey, good luck. If you get to the Skopje airport, we're going to help you. It was much more involved than that.
I just that statement of get to the airport. I mean, it's like you go to the Greyhound bus station and we'll have buses there waiting for you. You come to us in a situation as dire as this is just staggering.
Right.
And in addition,
sorry, go ahead, Dan.
No, I mean, just in addition to what we heard from Jake Sullivan, and again yesterday, Biden, the real resistance to make a commitment
to help us,
to send the signal to the Taliban that we are going to be there and we are going to do whatever it takes to get our people out. So you're on notice rather than please, mother, may I.
Right. I was going to say, too, that if we can charter buses to bring people who have broken our laws and who have entered our country illegally, if we can charter buses to bring these people to Chicago and to wherever their final destinations of choice would be, you think maybe we could go the extra mile to safely evacuate American citizens from one of the most dangerous countries in the world at the moment? I don't know. It's very sad.
Speaking of immigration, you were recently in Ecuador. You wrote about it in a piece in City Journal, part of your global travels. And you took away something from that trip, that experience, about economic migrants attempting to come to the United States. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, what we hear over and over again is that migrants coming here, that they're fleeing violence and persecution, right? How many times, Dan and Amy, have you guys heard that one?
Yeah, right.
Does a day ever go by when you don't hear that? I mean, it's sort of...
Except if they're Cuban. Only if they're Cuban.
Can't have Cubans, they're Republicans.
The world of economic migrants does not exist for the Democratic Party and the left. And what they're trying to do is they want to, in order to extract the maximum amount of sympathy and to let in as many people as possible, they have to sort of embed this, brand this in the minds of the public, is that migrants come here fleeing violence and persecution. Well, there's one country, there's a number of them, but one that I just happen to have traveled to, where illegal immigration is up 434% this year over year. So in the first 6 months of this year, more than 45,000 Ecuadorians. Now remember, this is not a huge country. This is not like Mexico, which has nearly 200 million people. I think Ecuador has 16, 17 million people in that range. So 45,000 people being apprehended in 6 months at the border. Remember, those are just the ones we caught, and a lot of estimates say that maybe 1 out of every 3 illegal migrants are actually caught at the border. So the real figure here is more coming over. And I was just in Ecuador for 3 weeks, and I have to tell you, it's an absolutely beautiful country, and it's a relatively safe country. Crime rates in the major cities, I visited the 3 largest cities there, are comparatively lower. They're definitely lower than Chicago, and overall murder rates lower than the U.S. These people are coming here to make money, plain and simple. They're coming here because they can make more money here than there. And this is just, it's so readily apparent, and yet there's this coordinated effort on the part of both the media and the Democratic Party, which really work hand in hand as sort of communications tag team, in order to sort of mislead and fool the American people into thinking that this is not economic migration. This is just people fleeing violence. And in many cases, for every person who's fleeing violence, there's 20 people, 50 people, 100 people who are coming here for a much simpler reason. And that's just to either make money or to have a more generous, essentially welfare system.
Yeah. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. We want people to come over here to better their lives, completely understandable. But you make the point here, too, that those who do it illegally versus those who do it legally, it's just a different cross-section of the population of any country. And this is why the distinction between legal and illegal is another reason, I should say, why the distinction between legal and illegal immigration is so important.
Right. No, and I mean, I think I made the point in the article too that, I've been to 70 some odd countries. Ecuador is one of my very favorites. This is one of the best trips I've taken in my life. Ecuadorian people are some of my favorite in the world. Incredibly welcoming, incredibly nice. And I think where sometimes people on the right get it wrong is they try to really scare people about immigration. All the people who are coming here are, like in Trump's famous comment about they're sending us rapists. Listen, the point is most of these people are very nice people. They're very good people. However, just because people are nice, that doesn't mean we can allow them to break our laws. You have to have a system of fairness. So my point about a lot of economic migrants is not to like sort of castigate them or to say they're awful, horrible people or we should be afraid of them because they're criminals and so on and so forth. But it's that it doesn't just being nice people and being good people and being hardworking people, that does not give them the right to break our laws. So I loved Ecuador. In fact, I already missed the place. I kind of wish I was back there. And one of the points I made in the article is that there's more than 10,000 Americans who have retired there. Now, the region in Ecuador called Cuenca, which sends us the most migrants, it's one of the regions that sends us the most immigrants. You've got people coming the other way. It's also a very popular retirement destination for Americans. So how can you make the case, that a place is too dangerous or awful when we've got Americans heading down in that direction? I mean, it really makes no sense.
No.
Same with
and,
Costa Rica.
Yeah, there are other places in Central America and South America, like Ecuador, where that's the case too.
And Mexico too.
Yeah, places like Venezuela, not among the list.
No.
But yes,
Sure,
there are some. Absolutely. Dave Seminara, former diplomat, author of Footsteps of Federer and Mad Travelers, A Tale of Wanderlust, Greed, and the Quest to Reach the Ends of the Earth. Dave, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Great talking to you guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Trading involves financial risk and is not suitable for all investors. Past results do not guarantee future performance.
Traders, listen up. As life in America starts to return to normal, are you looking for the best trading opportunities? With